feel good to my soul. God, I'm going to give my all to you. You always run around trying to sing that song. I give myself away so you can use me. How many of you really giving yourself away unto God? That's a whole nother sermon. I'm not going to even get on that. Listen, we'll put a pin in that. Hold it in your left hand. We'll come back to it on another day. So watch this. Though they went on. And this is the crazy part, because God anointed King Saul to be the king over Israel. But watch what happened in the text. The text goes on to say that God said, I regret. Yeah. God said, I regret even making you or anointing you as the king over this land. How many of you know that when God places you over something? Yeah. See, y'all don't want to hear this one right here. Yeah, when God places you over something, you got to be obedient, because when God anoints you to do something, you can only, listen, you don't have any other choice but to operate under the anointing of God. Listen, I don't have a choice to make some of the mistakes and some of the jacked up decisions that a lot of people try to make. I've got to continuously, the Bible declares that I've got to diligently seek Him. I can't even begin to think on my own and say, listen, I want to think how God thinks, because I can't think how He thinks. The only thing that I can do is do exactly what He told me to do. Right. Come on. Oh, y'all don't like me in here on today. Come on. And I know it. The Bible declares that King Saul made God look bad because he was disobedient to His word. Then the text goes on to say that God told Samuel, you got to go find another king of Israel. He told him, he says, listen, I need for you to go and see one of Jesse's sons. Prophet Samuel's like, well, I don't know which one. He says, I will show you which one I want. I need you to hear me. He says, but when I go, King Saul is going to kill me. God is not going to send you somewhere in harm's way without giving you a way of escape. You right? Oh, you need to hear me real good. In other words, if God is going to send you somewhere, God is going to keep you protected for the duration of it. Listen, you may even go into the fire. You may go into the flood. You may go into the rain. You may go into the storm. But God is not going to send you anywhere without giving you a way of escape. That's it. He told the prophet Samuel, he said, go, but what I need you to do is I need you to take one of these animals that he brought here and take them with you. And if they ask you anything, you tell them that I come to give a sacrifice unto God. In other words, that's my alibi. Somebody look at your neighbor and tell your neighbor, that's my alibi. That's my alibi. But that's a right alibi. See, some of you got the wrong alibi. You going to cheat on your boo and you telling your other friend, talking about if they call you, you tell. Stay there. The tricks in the game. Oh, yeah. See, we don't want to talk about stuff like that. Well, yeah, if they call you, tell them that I was with you all night long. Well. Teacher. Bro. God, when God gives you an alibi, you don't need to call on nobody else. Come on, man. When God gives you an alibi, it speaks for itself. Ain't nobody got to call your boo. Ain't nobody got to call your best friend and ask, well, where you been all night? I'm going to leave that right there alone. That's a whole nother sermon right there. Well, put a pin, hold that one in your right hand. We'll come back to that on Bible study. Thank you, Lord. But watch this. So they went in. And not only that, but see, when they got into the land, I promise I'm getting ready to go because I see y'all fanning like crazy. When they got into the land, Samuel told Jesse, he says, listen, I need to look at your sons. They didn't know what was going on. Sometimes you don't need to know what's going on. You just need to go with the flow. See, the problem why a lot of us can't grow with the church is because we need to know every move that's being made. God has given a vision. Just go with the vision. We need to know this, that, the third, everything else. Sometimes you cannot know every single detail. Watch this. Because if you knew everywhere you was going, you would need faith.
Yeah. You're right. You're right about that. That's right. Say that again.
But watch this, watch this, watch this. So he began to look at him. So he went to the first son. Said, no, he's big. This got to be one. God said, no, that ain't him. That ain't him. They said, Lord, what you mean that's not him? He's big. He's handsome. He's muscular. He's tall. God said, no, that's not the one. They went to the next one. They went to the next one. They went through all the sons that they had right there that were gathered together. Prophet Samuel said, I'm out. He went to Jesse. He said, listen, Jesse, do you have any more sons? Jesse said, no, I do have one more. And that one son that I got that's left, he's tending to the sheep. Prophet Samuel told him, he said, listen, send for him. He says, we will not sit, we will not eat, we will not do anything until your other son comes forward. They sent for David, and as David was on his way to where the prophet Samuel was, as he was approaching, the Lord spoke to him and said, that's the one. He's the one. And when David got there, David didn't understand what was going on, but as David walked up and approached the council, they began to take the horn that God had prepared Samuel with the oil that God had anointed himself. And they began to pour this oil onto David's head and anoint him as the next king. Now watch this, watch this, watch this, watch this. David did not know what was going on. David did not realize that he was being anointed as the next king. Sometimes, listen, let me step back for a second, because you got to realize what just happened here. Listen, I got to understand, you got to understand this. David was anointed by God when he didn't even know what was going on. David was doing the only thing that he knew to do, and that was tending the sheep. We spend so much time trying to be in the forefront. Everybody wants to be the pastor. Everybody wants to be the assistant pastor. Everybody wants to be the director. Everybody wants to be the first lady, the first gentleman. Everybody wants to be this and everybody wants to be that. But how many of you know God will recognize you when you're in your own lane? God will recognize you when you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. God will begin to recognize you when you're sitting back, humbling yourself, walking in your lane.
Go ahead now.
But not only did he recognize him when he was doing the only thing that he knew to do. Watch this, you got to realize David was anointed with the oil of God while he was still smelling like sheep. Somebody still ain't got it yet. You got to be anointed right where, as a matter of fact, you was anointed when you were still in the whorehouse. You was anointed when you was walking around smoking crack. You was anointed when you were standing on the street corner. God, he anointed you right where you were. Wonder why folks still on the street still got a word from the Lord, because God has anointed them even while they were smelling like where they were.
Come on now.
Watch this, watch this. Even when it comes to the church, if God has sent you somewhere to sit up under somebody, you need to sit there, be obedient, and follow instructions. Yeah. See, we don't want to hear nothing like that. Follow the instructions of the leader. Watch this. And God will begin to anoint you while you still smelling like the sheep. Yeah. Watch this. If you be careful and take care of the things that where you are right now. Listen, this is gonna blow your mind. You wonder why youth pastors end up being the best pastors.
Well, we're gonna go there.
Youth pastors end up being the best pastors because usually that's the position in the church that's the most humble. And the reason why is because they're working with the young folk. Yeah. And they know how to take care of other folks' sheep. Yeah. As long as you know how to take care of somebody else's sheep, God will bless you with your own sheep.
Well.
Okay, all right. I'm leaving leave that right there alone because that ain't interesting you right now. But watch this. Watch this. I gotta move on. Gotta move on. Watch this. So after that happened, David was anointed. Didn't know why he was anointed. Sat down and had the feast with the prophet and with the council. And guess what David did? David went right back to tending the sheep. When God anoints a lot of us, we feel like we can't go back to where we came from. Listen. I'm talking to myself. Because when God gave me a little title, I became a pastor. I said, I ain't singing in the choir no more. Oh, y'all don't want to hear that. Yeah. Bishop, when Bishop got the title, Pastor Bishop said, I ain't singing in the choir no more. I ain't got to sing in the choir no more. I'm the pastor. A lot of us do the same thing. When God has elevated us, we feel like we can't even go back and wash the door. We can't even go and clean the church. We can't even go and be somebody's usher. We can't help nobody to their seat. We can't take up no offering no more. We can't even greet people at the door. We can't help nobody get into the building. We won't even come and clean it up no more because now I got myself a little tighter. God and anointed me to do something. David went back to tend to the sheep. But watch this. Later on in the text, you'll find that the Philistines came to fight the Israelites. And you had one side on one hill and the other side on another hill. And there was a steep valley that separated the two. And Brother Adrian, in order for them to fight, they had to go down into the valley to fight. Strategically, it was placed this way. Anytime they went to battle in these days, they had to go down into the valley. Listen, it's something about the valley. Listen, it's something about going down into the valley because when I go into the valley, I'm going to be cleansed. When I go into the valley, either I'm going down there and I'm going down or I'm coming back up stronger than what I went down. Yeah. I wish I had a witness up in here. Listen, a lot of us don't like our valley experience, but how many of you know that the only way you can grow is that you have some valley experience?
You're right. Experience is the best teacher.
Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadows of death, I will fear no evil. Come on now, somebody. So there comes a point in time where you got to walk in the valley. But the only thing about this is that somebody was going down in the valley and somebody wasn't coming back up. Question is it going to be you? So they were standing there for 40 days. Somebody say 40 days.
40 days.
For 40 days, this giant, 9+ feet tall, heavy armor on, was walking up to the top of the hill on the Philistine side, shouting out commands and mockery to the Israelites, making fun of them, telling them that they were going to die. Said, if you think you can handle me, send one man to fight me. If he kills me, the Philistines will bow down to the Israelites. And if I kill him, then the Israelites will have to bow down to the Philistines. And because he was so big, everybody was afraid of him. Even this man called King Saul, who was the king of the land. He was afraid of this giant. So the Bible goes on to say that David was sitting there tending to the sheep back at home. And his father Jesse told him, he says, listen, I need for you to gather up some food. Take it to your brothers. Feed them. And feed the commanders of the army. And watch this. He said,